Welcome to the Selling from the Heart podcast on the Salescast Network. You've joined a global movement of sales professionals who are dedicated to being authentic and building trust. We call it Selling from the Heart. Together, we are on a mission to bring sincerity and substance to the sales profession we all love. Get ready to be inspired and equipped as we join our hosts, Larry Levine and Daryl Amy.
Does your CEO value trust and authenticity as a foundation of your company culture? If so, they'll love my award-winning book, Selling in a Post-Trust World.
This powerful book dives into the principles of authentic leadership, showing how trust and meaningful relationships can drive real results. It's a must-read for leaders who prioritize people, connection, and culture.
Now, you can send your CEO a free copy of this game-changing book. It's simple, free, and the perfect way to celebrate a leader who leads with heart.
So visit ceo.sellingfromtheheart.net and we'll send a free copy of the book to your CEO today. That's ceo.sellingfromtheheart.net. Because leaders who value trust will embrace this book and take your company's culture to the next level.
Hello and welcome back to the Selling from the Heart podcast. Your co-host, Daryl Amy, here today with Larry Levine. What's going on, Larry?
Hey, first of all, great seeing you. Another great day here at Selling from the Heart. I am fired up for our guest today, Daryl. We're going to have a great time.
Get ready to meet Meredith Bell. You're actually absolutely going to love this conversation. Larry, we are pushing through this year. We got a lot of great things going on. And one of the things we're committed, even as we get it solidly into Q2, start looking into summer, we want to be right alongside you, encouraging you, motivating you, keeping everybody fired up throughout this year as we all work together to make 2025 the best year yet.
You know, absolutely. I just have to give a special shout out to a dear friend of ours here in the Selling from the Heart community, Mr. Ed Draper. Ed listens every week. He chimes in almost every week. If there's somebody out there that waves a flag on Selling from the Heart, it's Mr. Ed Draper. Ed, we really appreciate you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Hats off to you and hats off to all of our friends out there in the Selling from the Heart community. We are so glad you've joined us today. And we are thrilled to welcome Meredith Bell to the studio. She is a master connector and powerhouse of wisdom. As the president and co-founder of Grow Strong Leaders, Meredith brings decades of experience helping organizations strengthen the people side of their business, and she's going to help us do that today. She also hosts the Grow Strong Leaders podcast, where she interviews business leaders from companies like Merck, FedEx, and UC Berkeley. Her conversations highlight how these organizations create positive work cultures and provide opportunities to help people reach their full potential. Based near Williamsburg, Virginia, Meredith is an avid birdwatcher and nature lover, finding inspiration in the outdoors. And I know she's going to inspire us today. Meredith, welcome to Selling from the Heart. It's great to have you here.
Thank you, Daryl and Larry. I'm excited to be here with you.
Oh, so are we. We're going to have a great time.
Yeah, we are definitely learning from a master today. And you know, as we get started today, Meredith, the question that every guest on the Selling from the Heart podcast answers, and that is, what does it mean to you to sell from the heart?
You know, for me, it means coming from a place of loving service. And that means that I am thinking about how can I contribute to this other person. In fact, when I think about selling from the heart, I can instantly think of this quote that I've absorbed and lived by for over 10 years that I read in The Prosperous Coach by Steve Chandler. And it was a question that jumped up off the page at me, and it was this: how can I serve this person so powerfully that they never forget our conversation for the rest of their life? You know, when you think about that, they're not going to remember a conversation where you focus on your products and the features and benefits of them. They're going to remember a conversation where you focused on them, what was important to them. And so it's that combination of caring and coming from a place of caring and curiosity. And if I can real quick quote another book that I just love. It's another one by Steve Chandler. Interestingly, it's on how to get clients. And this chapter on curiosity was, again, reinforcing this idea of selling from the heart, because he talks about curiosity as something that you can bring to a conversation because you have this commitment to understand the person and you care about what's important to them. And this sentence, if you really think about it, he says, curiosity is what you're bringing and love is what is felt. It takes a special kind of presence to convey that kind of caring to someone else.
Oh, this is so good. Hey, Meredith, this is right up my alley. This is so powerful. But you know what was interesting as I was listening to what you were saying, especially the first quote by Steve, this is just dancing through my head. And I really want sales leaders and salespeople to really hone in on this, please, is how are you making these people feel, first of all, and then are you leaving them in a better place after the conversation than before the conversation? And I hope more people take those two quotes to heart. Thanks for sharing, Meredith.
Yes. You know, and thinking about that, what you just said, I think is so important, leaving them better off. And another element of that is something you can tell I'm a student of all kinds of things, but this idea of appreciation, I learned a whole different way of thinking about that. Again, probably 15 years ago, it was a podcast. You're probably familiar with Joe Polish, a marketer, and Dan Sullivan, who has the strategic coach. Well, in this particular episode, Dan was talking about the word appreciation and appreciate. And he's a real student of words. And he was checking that there were two definitions that apply to the relationship building. And one of them was thinking about the scouts in wartime were sent out to appreciate what was going on with the enemy. And look at that in terms of our everyday lives. What we're talking about there is appreciating what's important to us about this situation or about this other person. And the other one to me is profound when it comes to sales. And it's thinking of appreciation as the value this other person has. And how can I increase their value in my own mind and in their mind? And, you know, we think about things like stocks appreciating and real estate appreciating, but we don't always think about how do we appreciate and grow in value this person who's in front of us. And it all has to do with our preparation in advance. What can I learn about the person? What can I think about that would help me convey to them, you're valuable in this conversation. And what happens is almost magical, because as we really tune into their value, they appreciate their own value in their own mind. And what greater gift is that? That to me is the essence of elevating someone else.
Elevating, appreciating. I love the bridge between valuing them as a person and bringing meaningful value to the conversation, to their business, to their life. I think that is so, so beautiful. And that really captures the essence of selling from the heart. I love it. I love it. Well, Meredith, one of the things that we talked about before the show is in the context of selling from the heart, the importance of character. And character is really a critical thing right now in what we would call a post-trust world, showing up with character. But you've got a unique twist from your research in what character is. So I'm really, really curious to hear your perspective on character.
Thank you. You know, people often think of character as being one thing, like trust or like integrity. I've done a lot of webinars and programs where I've asked the audience, you know, what do you think of when you hear strong character? And inevitably, trust and integrity come up. And those are certainly big aspects of character. But if we can step back, and there's an important distinction here about character. We don't believe it's something that you either have or you don't. it's a skill that can be developed. And in fact, it's a combination of skills. It's not just one thing. So if you think of, a lot of leaders go through, and employees as well, go through training around communication skills. How can I be a better listener? How can I be better at giving or receiving feedback? Well, character to us is no different. There are behavior patterns. How can I improve my integrity with myself, with others? How can I improve my trust with myself and with others? And so we've divided those into 3 different categories just to make it easy to kind of put your arms around it or your head around it. And it's becoming stronger for myself as self, creating stronger relationships, and creating a stronger work ethic. So if I can give you just a couple of examples, creating a stronger self has to do with strengthening my self-awareness. And, these are things we never get to the end of. It's a lifelong learning of becoming stronger in my character. So also for self are things like resilience and patience and composure. And when we think of relationships, certainly integrity and trust are part of that, but so are compassion and forgiveness and empathy. And then in work ethic, we look at things like accountability, responsibility, initiative, excellence. So there are different elements that to us kind of combine into this entity that we refer to as character. There are just a lot of aspects to it. Just like with sales, there's so many aspects to selling. It's not just one thing. So think of character in a similar way.
Just through this, and I like the how you brought up the first part of this is working on self first, because I think that's probably the hardest part of this. I don't know if you all agree, but I think constantly working on ourself is the most important part of all of this in developing character.
Yes, I definitely do, because when you think about it, they're all interrelated. So if I am having greater self-awareness, how am I responding to what's going on right now? I'm more likely to also develop greater empathy in the moment as well. So it's not like these are 36 different unrelated pieces. They all are related. And I think you're so right, Larry. The more we work on ourselves and making a stronger self, is going to have a ripple effect on our relationships.
No question about that. And we love talking about doing the inner work here at Selling from the Heart. I'm curious, just as a guide, what advice would you give to our listeners in terms of doing that work on character and when it comes to yourself?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the first thing is becoming more aware of where am I, experiencing a challenge perhaps in my life where I'm not getting the results I want, or I'm not creating the relationship that I want. And so if we really have courage, which is another aspect of character, we can ask others to give us input about that very thing. If I were to, let's say the 3 of us work together, if I went to each of you separately and said, I really want to strengthen who I'm being in the world, and I would love for you to share with me, what is one area that you would think I could work on that would make me more effective? And that kind of input and feedback from others is just pure gold. Because first of all, they have to trust us to know that, yes, I'm going to take this risk and be honest with Meredith and say, here's what I think and what I believe would be most helpful to you. It's hard for us to see ourselves clearly. And that's why input from others can be really valuable.
You know what I think this does is this helps build a couple things. One is confidence. Second is believability. And those 2 things, confidence and believability, you start improving those 2 things. And I think that has a direct impact to communication and how you communicate.
No doubt. Yeah. In fact, confidence comes from taking actions, right? That scare us. We realize, oh, I did that. I achieved that. I made that ask. I get that appointment. Those kinds of actions lead to us feeling like, wow, if I could do that, then I can do other things. So we build that confidence. You know what it really takes for any of these to get strengthened is practice. Mm-hmm. We need to be committed to putting into action the practice, because that's what's required to rewire our brains so that we start performing this particular behavior in a more effective way than we might have done in the past, because we all have patterns. None of these aspects of character are written in stone, but we do have habits around them. And so those habits, while they're not written in stone, they're wired pretty tightly in our brain. And so adopting a new behavior is not easy. And we have to have that commitment to try it, practice it, learn from what happened, and practice it again. So we get stronger, so that think of the brain wiring initially as like a gravel road or a dirt road. It's not very comfortable going down it initially, but over time it becomes a super highway and we can do it automatically. So when it comes to being confident, that's just our natural way of being. And even when we're put in an unknown or a new situation, we can deal with it because we have developed that inner confidence that I am capable of handling whatever situations I might encounter.
That's such a helpful perspective, because I know it's so many of us in sales are, we say practice and we're like, yeah, whatever. But if you think about the importance of practice from the perspective of rewiring your brain, or I like that analogy of paving the road. So when I get into situations, I can feel confident because my brain has been rewired in these areas. I really, really like that perspective, Meredith.
Yeah, it just takes the practice, which takes commitment to make the decision. I am going to approach, let's just take what I was referring to at the very beginning about approaching a conversation from a place of loving service. And this took me years, of practice, because I used to be waiting for the opportunity to get in with a word about our products, right? And that people sense that, that I think we underestimate people's ability to read us. And so that's where, before we even have a conversation, if we mentally prepare ourselves by asking that question, how can I serve this person so powerfully they never forget our conversation? Well, that means, to me, doing my homework and then asking questions that maybe nobody's asked them before about what's important to them, so they feel that we care about them as a person. We don't just see them as one more prospect to have a conversation with, to check the box. Yes, I had X number of calls today, but who did you really connect with? And when someone senses that from us, that's what's unforgettable, because too often people are waiting for their turn to talk. And so they miss out on the little nuances that they could have picked up on to ask a deeper question, to say, oh, I noticed that you hesitated just then when I asked you about such and such. I'm curious what that means or what you were thinking with that. Picking up on these things that sometimes they are not even aware they're doing it. And when we can hold up a mirror and speak the truth, I'm not talking about, being soft. I've been called a velvet hammer before, where I'm listening intently and I'm willing to speak the truth that I'm hearing or seeing from the other person. And they won't forget that easily, because we can challenge someone's thinking in a considerate way, respectful way, where they don't feel like we're, pushing up against them, but we're inviting them to think differently about something that they may have had an opinion or a position about previously.
Oh, I really like this. And I agree with what you're saying. Now, there's going to be some people that aren't going to agree with about ready to say that's okay. I think there's aspects that you just have to let this conversation go where the conversation goes. And so many people have a hard time letting that conversation go where it needs to go because they're so attached to the outcome and what they're going to say next. They lose the little clues that are said by just letting it go where it goes.
I think what happens then is we can lose a bit of credibility if somebody is really opening up to us and then we suddenly switch to one of our predetermined questions. It's like they're shaking their head going, did you even hear what I just said? And so that's why, to me, it's so rare that someone listens that intently. You will set yourself apart if you can listen at a deep level where you're not preparing your answer, but you're really seeking to understand what that other person is saying and not saying, that you can explore and go deeper. Because to me, it's all about building that strong relationship. And what's interesting also to me is that the more intensely you focus on that person and show a genuine interest in them, the quicker you build trust. And Larry, you wrote this whole book about trust. So I'm not speaking anything that's inconsistent with what you are saying. It's this setting yourself apart by being a person who is genuinely interested in the well-being and the future success of the person you're speaking to.
As we round out this conversation, Meredith, I'm curious what advice you would give our listeners who are sales professionals who are wanting to become better communicators. So many of the things we've talked about here in the last few minutes definitely apply, but what else would you add when it comes to being a better communicator as a true sales professional?
I think creating some questions is one of those. To think past that have helped. So you have those naturally to you in the conversation, so that calmly and patiently say you thought of, so that you're inviting them to continue telling you, because sometimes when you do that extensive invitation, you uncover more things that help you make the connection between your offering and what their need is. But sometimes we can go in too quickly thinking, oh, they said this, so that connects with what we offer here. And so we're often running, talking about our offering instead of exploring a little bit more. So that willingness to pause and listen and ask more questions, and then ask for their feedback. Is what I'm saying here, making sense? Do you have any input for me that would be helpful for me to better understand your situation or what's going on? I think a level of calmness in any of these communication skills is a vital part to putting the prospect at ease, so they're not feeling anxious or feel like we're being pushy in any way. But we can have that intensity with calmness in our interest and focus on them.
You know what I like is this silent pause. I'm glad you brought this up. I think there's so much to be said. And this is where people get a little bit nervous, is they figure, oh man, if I silently pause for a second, something's going to happen. However, it's the complete opposite. The silent pause allows everybody to comprehend what was just said as opposed to just talking and talking and talking. Take a breath, talk. What's your take on the power of the silent pause? I'm glad you brought it up. I think it's masterful stuff.
It really is a master. I don't like to use the word technique. It's a masterful way of being that we are comfortable with, especially if we've asked the person a question that nobody's asked them before or that they wouldn't typically get asked. We need to allow them, and it's not a yes or no, we need to allow them time to process, especially if they're more of an internal processor and not external processor. They may just need a few minutes or, and it can seem like forever, but if we could just sit and wait, it's showing respect for them and the need they may have to think about it, and they will appreciate that. So I think there's a huge power in a willingness to me, exercise patience. That's another character aspect, and just allow for that and not feel like I need to fill that silence with more talking, because then we're robbing them of the opportunity to do more thinking.
Mm.
Oh, wow. And how powerful is it when we want our buyers to think, we want our buyers to absorb the conversation. And I'll tell you one thing, Meredith, this conversation has got me thinking, and I know it has our listeners thinking as well. And I know they have a question, and that question is, how do I get more Meredith Bell in my life?
Well, one way is to connect with me on LinkedIn, because I post a lot there. That's my favorite social media place. And also go to our website, growstrongleaders.com, where you can learn about the tools that we've created to help develop strong leaders. And we have 2 books that reinforce the things we've been talking about: Grow Strong Character by my business partner, Denny Coates, and Connect with Your Team, about 10 high impact communication skills. I would love to connect with your listeners. So please look me up on LinkedIn and let's have a conversation. And you'll see me practice what I talked about here when we have a conversation.
I love me some Meredith Bell. It's always good seeing you, Meredith.
It's great to see you too. And Daryl, it's wonderful to meet you today.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing your heart with us today. This has really been amazing. Awesome. Larry, what a great conversation, and so many nuggets in there about how we can develop character. And it goes back at the beginning of that conversation to the inner work and taking the time to do that. And I think there's a lot of things that you could go back on this episode and just hit pause about 8 different times and take some notes on this and reflect and take action on what Meredith has been sharing with us here today.
Absolutely. We've always said here, we're big believers of selling from the heart, that the inner work you do fuels all the outer success you will have. If you work on your character, it does require practice. But what will happen is you'll start communicating more effectively, which then helps you build more confidence. And this all has an impact to your success.
Wow. Yeah, sums it up great. Well, make sure to connect with Meredith on LinkedIn. Grab copies of her books, especially for your sales leader and your CEO. And we've got a great roster of guests coming up throughout the rest of this season. So thank you to everybody who is liking and subscribing to the podcast on YouTube. And thank you to everyone who's spreading the word. When you leave a review on Selling from the Heart, it helps us grow this movement of authenticity and trust right here in this sales profession we all love. And Larry, I'm so excited about all that's ahead.
Yeah, it's our promise. Thank you, Daryl. It's our promise to bring you fresh voices, new ideas, new insights, all to help elevate the sales profession. And Daryl, I think we can all agree, we can all collectively raise the bar in the sales profession.
That's right. Well, till next time, keep being genuine, keep being authentic, keep building trust, develop your character, and most of all,
sell from the heart.